Hello, my name's Jonathan and welcome to my railway room, which is still under development because we only recently moved here, and I'm having to store stuff for the garden shed which hasn't arrived yet, and so it's all a bit cluttered at the moment, but we're getting there. Now, first of all, a little bit about myself. I have been interested in railways ever since I was a boy. Started off with a Hornby O-gauge clockwork, as many of my generation did. Then went to O-gauge trying, and it was in an old shepherd's type hut, 10 foot by 6 foot, with a layout going around the room, and various novel things like the Bloodhound missile kit coming up out of the mountain and so forth. Well, here we are at my workbench, and yes, I have had a tidy up before you came, and it's a work in progress. I'm going to put something up here to hang more bits and pieces up, like track setters and drill templates and all that sort of stuff. I've returned to modelling after about 30 years, did some when I was a child, as I mentioned, but then when our boys were in their early teens, I started to make a model of Hailsham Station. Unfortunately, GCSEs came along and they needed the space in their bedroom for desks so they could study, which they did successfully. And so it all got packed away. We moved back to where I grew up, and it sat in a cowshed for another 25 years. And unfortunately, the woodworm had had a jolly good lunch, and so it all just had to be burnt, which was very sad, but gave me a fresh opportunity to start. So I've decided to start on a diorama, nice short thing about 2 foot long in a 4 foot long baseboard, allowing a bit of room for fiddle yards. And I've based it on the Hellingly Hospital railway, which is near Hailsham in East Sussex, as featured in Peter Harding's lovely little book on the railway, which gives a history of it and lots of lovely pictures, and one of which I've used as a basis for doing the layout, and I'll show you that later on. My main interest is in, having been brought up in Sussex, is the London Brighton South Coast Railway, and if we zoom in, so got the classic Hornby loco and brake van there, and then a little bit further along we have this little chap, which was the Hospital Railway electric locomotive working on the tramway principle. It's an unfinished kit, but I will get round to finishing that off when I'm ready to run it on the railway. Now, I promised you earlier on I'd show you a bit more about the layout I'm going to build and the reason for it. I said it's based on this book by Peter A. Harding and on the Hospital Railway, and it's one of a whole series of books that he's done. I looked online this morning and I think there's about 20 of them at £4 each, and they're a jolly good little read. I've no personal interest in it, just as a satisfied customer and reader. I've got several of them now, and it's a whole series on backwater railways, little branch lines like the Hawkhurst branch, the Bisley Camp Railway, things like that. And it's the photograph on page 2 in this book that I'm basing this working diorama on, which is here, and you can see there the loco pulling a brake van on an enthusiast special towards the end of the line, and quite a few of these happened, and in between there you can just see the sign Knight's Nurseries Limited, and that's where I worked for, I think it's somewhere between 14 and 17 years, latterly at that site. So, and just there on the line when I was working there, or on the remains of the line, was an old tractor, a Massey Ferguson 35, and I bought it because it wasn't being used, and I partially did it up at least. So there's various little reasons why I want to do this layout. Personal interest, and it's local to me, it's just a simple little diorama, will help me get back into modelling and techniques. This is a photo of what the site looks like now, quite a bit different, and one of the gates that's still there. The other one disappeared a while ago, to make room for big, I think probably big agricultural vehicles to go in or something at the time. The baseboard, you can see marked on the base there the roads that go across the crossing. To the top left you've got New Road, which leads out towards Amberstone. Top right, Park Road, which leads to Union Corner and goes past the nursery entrance. Bottom right is Station Road, which, as the name implies, went up to Hellingly Station, where the branch broke off from the Cuckoo line, which was the Tunbridge Wells and Eastbourne Railway, an LBSER line. And then the bottom left is the road up to the hospital, which I don't think actually has got a name, but we'll call it the Hospital Lane. And so that's the basis of the layout. I call it Swingate Crossing because it's Swingate Crossroads, and crossings is a bit easier to say, I think. Right, now I've come round the back of the layout, and first of all we've got the fiddle yard representing the hospital end of the line, which has got a Colworth's controller, which I was going to use for the fiddle yard on the Hailsham station layout, but now I've got it as the sole control for the layout. We have a little traverser here, so I can have various trains of stock coming in and then swapped over for other things. That's the selector for the tracks, that's the controller, and these two switches will be eventually to operate the level crossing gates at Swingate Crossing on the front of the layout. And then up the other end we have the station end of the layout. Now the loco always pushed the locos up to the hospital, so at this end of the layout again I've got the selector switch for the various tracks. There's the traverser, just a simple wooden thing which is jamming up against something, there we go. And there's a little loco spur here, so when the loco pulls the train back in it can park, and I can select another train and push that up. And then this is just the isolating switch, because eventually I hope that a kit will be produced of the tram car so that we can have that running as well, so that would have its own little track here, and we'll see that as we go along with this layout. And I've been working on a back scene which I'm going to now put in. I'll grab it and put it in there. It's going to be a bit of a tricky one to put in. It should go in there. There we go. It's down that side. Excuse me, I just got across the camera. And come in this side and get that located in there. As I said, it's a bit of a tight fit, but there we go. And that's in place. So let's just come back a bit Now you can see the railway, and it'll pop through those two holes in the back scene, and we've got a bit of disguising to do there, of course. Now looking over towards the right there, that building in the distance is Horsebridge Mill on the Cuckmere River, and then working our way across to the left, right in the distance there, a mile or two away, is the church at Howsham, St Mary's Church, or Howsham Parish Church as it's now known as, and just to the left of it, the windmill, Cat's Windmill down Mill Road in Howsham. So there we have the entire back scene. Don't think I'll win any prizes for artwork, but there we go. Right now, so I've got the back scene in. I've got to fix it permanently yet, but I'll just show you the next stage that I should be doing, and that will probably be in a further video. And that is putting the scenery in. Now, originally, in real life, the layout would have the land actually came up this way towards the hospital, because there was a reasonably steep climb up to the hospital on the railway. But because I wanted to go the view this way, but I still want the scenery to go to the back, so I've had to slightly alter geography, and I've made these pieces of cardboard to go up, which will go in here and will form profile for the scenery, and similar at the front here, so it all comes down, and then we shall do the layout. The level crossing gates went there and there. They just shut off the two completely private sections of railway from the road, and so each time they came through they had to open the gates, come through, shut the gates, go on up to the hospital, and then the same on the way back down again. And this bit in the middle here, they've got the two roads coming like that, and this bit in the middle was just open, but I don't think ever suffered from vandalism. So there we are. That's the start of this layout. We'll come back again later, and I'll film the sequence for doing the scenery, and show you how I'm getting on. See you next time.